The Nevada desert stretched endlessly, its horizon shimmering under the punishing sun. At the edge of a forgotten training compound near Reno, a group of Army Rangers stood in formation, rifles slung, waiting for the next drill. Among them was a stranger. She didn't wear fatigues, didn't carry insignia, didn't even bother with regulation boots. Just a weathered leather jacket, faded cargo pants, and a cap pulled low over her eyes. Her rifle case was matte black, unmarked, scarred from years of use. They called her Shade. Not officially, of course. Officially, she didn't exist. No records, no clearance, no rank. Yet she had walked past the guards escorted by two men in suits who spoke in clipped tones and carried folders no one dared to open. Rumors spread quickly. Some said she was ex-CIA. Others whispered she had defected from a foreign unit. But most didn't care who she was. They only wanted to know if she could shoot. The answer came fast. On the first day, the instructor set up a range at 1,300 yards across shifting winds and jagged terrain. The Rangers tried, adjusting scopes, missing more than hitting. Then Shade stepped forward. She assembled her rifle with movement so fluid they seemed rehearsed in another lifetime. She lay prone, adjusted for wind without a word, and fired. The steel plate rang out, dead center. Again. Again. Every shot perfect, every adjustment instinctive. By the fifth round, she had cleared the sequence faster than any Ranger on record. Silence followed. One soldier muttered, "Who the hell is she?" Another replied, "Doesn't matter. She's better than all of us." That evening, Shade sat alone in the mess hall, cleaning her weapon with deliberate care. A Ranger named Torres approached, curious. "You ex-military?" he asked. She didn't answer. He pressed, "Respect's earned here." Shade finally looked up, her voice low, steady, then earn it. From that moment, the legend began. Shade wasn't there to prove herself. She was there to remind them that perfection wasn't a goal, it was survival. And survival was the only language she spoke. The mountains outside Denver were cruel teachers. Rain lashed against the training grounds of Fort Horizon, a facility so secret it wasn't marked on any map. Shade had arrived quietly, carrying only her rifle and a silence that unsettled even hardened Rangers. The first trial was endurance. A grueling march across sodden ridges, mud sucking at boots, wind cutting through soaked uniforms. Most stumbled, cursed, or slowed. Shade moved like mist, steady, unbroken, her pace neither hurried nor hesitant. She didn't speak, didn't falter, didn't even glance at the others. By dusk, she was the first to reach the checkpoint, her jacket dripping, her eyes hidden beneath the brim of her cap. The next day brought combat drills. Close quarters sparring in the rain-slick armory yard. Torres, the Ranger who had challenged her before, stepped forward. He was taller, stronger, a veteran of 2 tours. He swung hard, testing her. Shade didn't block with brute force. She shifted, redirected, used his momentum against him. Every strike was efficient, every movement calculated. Within minutes, Torres was on the ground, breathless, staring up at her as she stood calm, untouched. But respect came slowly. Some muttered she was just a consultant, a civilian brought in to observe. Others claimed she was a ghost from forgotten wars. Shade ignored them all. She wasn't there to belong. She was there to prove survival wasn't about strength or rank, it was about precision. That night, Torres approached her again, no longer mocking. "You don't belong here," he admitted quietly. Shade looked at him, her voice low, "I'm not here to belong. I'm here to make sure you survive." From that moment, the whispers changed. Shade wasn't just a stranger. She was the storm itself, unpredictable, relentless, and impossible to ignore. Chicago's skyline glowed under a restless night, neon lights flickering against the drizzle. Shade had been summoned to an urban training ground known only as Iron District, a labyrinth of abandoned warehouses repurposed for covert exercises. It wasn't about wilderness survival anymore. This was about chaos, tight alleys, blind corners, and enemies hidden in shadows. The drill was hostage rescue. Simulated insurgents guarded mannequins meant to represent civilians. The Rangers had failed the course for 2 years straight, too many casualties, too many missed shots. Shade entered without ceremony, her rifle slung low, her movements deliberate. She didn't rush. She flowed. She cleared the first building in silence, neutralizing targets with surgical precision. Every shot was placed to avoid collateral damage, every step calculated to minimize exposure. When smoke grenades filled the hallways, she didn't panic. She listened, footsteps, breathing, the faint scrape of boots on concrete. She fired through the haze, dropping hostiles before they even saw her. By the end, all civilians were intact. 0 casualties. Record time. The instructors stared, stunned. One muttered, "No one's done that in years." Torres, watching from the sidelines, whispered, "She doesn't just shoot. She predicts." Later, in the mess hall, Shade sat alone again, cleaning her weapon. A younger ranger approached nervously. "How do you do it?" he asked. Shade didn't look up. "I don't play games," she said softly. "I finish missions." Word spread quickly through the district. Shade wasn't just another shooter. She was something else, an operator who saw the battlefield like a map already drawn, who moved through chaos as if it were scripted. That night, Torres found her on the rooftop, staring at the city lights. "You're not here to train," he said quietly. Shade turned, her eyes unreadable. "I'm here to remind you what survival looks like." And in that moment, the legend deepened. Shade wasn't just a ghost in the desert or the storm. She was the shadow in the city, the unseen hand that turned impossible missions into victories. The Appalachian woods near Asheville, North Carolina, were thick with fog that clung to the trees like ghosts. Shade had been sent to Camp Ironwood, a covert training site buried deep in the forest. Here, silence wasn't just discipline, it was survival. The exercise was night navigation. Teams of rangers moved through the dense terrain, tasked with reaching hidden checkpoints while evading simulated hostiles. Most relied on maps, compasses, whispered directions. Shade carried none of those. She moved alone, her steps soundless, her eyes scanning the forest as if she had lived there all her life. Halfway through, the teams were ambushed. Blank rounds cracked through the night, flares lit the canopy, chaos erupted. Rangers scattered, shouting, trying to regroup. Shade didn't run. She dropped low, studied the angles of light, and slipped through the confusion like smoke. Within minutes, she had neutralized 3 hostiles with precise shots, each one taken between gusts of wind and shifting shadows. By dawn, she was the only participant to reach the final checkpoint without being tagged. The instructors, hardened veterans, exchanged looks. One muttered, "She doesn't just see the forest. She reads it." That night, something shifted. A few rangers began to nod at her during briefings. One left an energy bar at her table, a silent gesture of respect. Even Torres, once skeptical, handed her a canteen without a word. The turning point came during the blind shooter drill in the forest. Each sniper was given coordinates and 90 seconds to fire at a moving target hidden among the trees. One by one, they missed. Shade studied the data for seconds, raised her rifle, and fired. Bullseye. Through fog, brush, and shifting wind. The camp went silent. Even the director, Colonel Reeves, wrote on her evaluation sheet, "Untouchable." Shade didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. She simply cleaned her rifle beneath the canopy, her silence louder than any applause. The forest had tested her, and she had answered, not with words, but with precision. The Mojave stretched endlessly, its dunes shimmering under a merciless sun. Shade had been flown to Outpost Meridian, a covert desert facility used to test operators under the harshest conditions. Here, heat was the enemy, and silence was the only ally. The exercise was Overwatch. A ranger unit advanced across the barren flats toward a simulated hostile village. Shade took position on a jagged ridge, her rifle steady, her body unmoving despite the blistering wind. She had been there for hours, watching, calculating. The first shots rang out from hidden bunkers. Rangers scrambled for cover, pinned down by suppressive fire. Shade didn't wait for orders. She adjusted her scope, tracked the muzzle flashes, and fired. One hostile dropped, then another. Her rhythm was unbroken, her breathing slow, her movements instinctive. Within minutes, the Rangers had room to maneuver. But the test wasn't over. A second sniper revealed himself, buried in the rocks nearly a mile away. His scope glinted in the sun, aimed directly at the Ranger commander. Shade's mind calculated distance, 1,480 yards. Crosswind at 9 knots. No spotter. No margin for error. She inhaled once, exhaled, and fired. The hostile collapsed before his finger touched the trigger. The Rangers advanced, completing the mission with minimal casualties. When they returned to base, the commander approached Shade. "You weren't cleared to engage," he said. Shade met his gaze, calm and steady. "I wasn't here to follow rules. I was here to finish the mission." Word spread quickly through the outpost. Shade wasn't just accurate, she was surgical. She didn't shoot to prove herself. She shot because survival demanded it. And in the desert, survival was the only truth. That night, as the sun bled into the horizon, Torres sat beside her in silence. Finally, he spoke. "You saved us." Shade didn't look up. "I don't save," she said softly. "I prevent loss." The desert had tested her, and she had answered. Not with medals, not with recognition, but with precision that turned chaos into survival. Shade wasn't just a ghost anymore. She was the fire in the desert, unseen, unstoppable, unforgettable. The highlands near Bozeman, Montana, were unforgiving. Jagged cliffs cut into the sky, winds howled through narrow passes, and the cold gnawed at bone. Shade had been deployed to Ridgefall Station, a covert site used to test operators in extreme elevation. Here, every breath was a battle, and every shot demanded perfection. The mission was Overwatch for a Ranger unit moving through hostile terrain. Shade climbed alone, scaling the ridge with quiet precision, her rifle strapped across her back. Hours passed as she lay prone beneath a camo net, her body still as stone, her eyes locked on the valley below. But the real test came when a foreign sniper revealed himself, professional, disciplined, positioned nearly 1,500 yards away. His scope glinted, aimed directly at the Ranger commander. Shade calculated distance, angle, wind. No spotter. No time. She inhaled once, exhaled, and fired. The hostile collapsed, his rifle clattering against the rocks. The Rangers regrouped, completing their mission. When they returned to base, the commander confronted Shade. "You weren't cleared to engage," he said. Shade's voice was calm, steady. "I wasn't here to follow rules. I was here to make sure you lived." That night, Torres sat beside her near the fire. He didn't speak at first, just stared at the flames. Finally, he said, "You don't just shoot. You see the battlefield before it happens." Shade didn't look up. "I don't see the future," she replied softly. "I see what others ignore." The ridge had tested her, and she had answered. Not with medals, not with recognition, but with precision that turned death into survival. Shade wasn't just a ghost anymore. She was the silent ridge, watching, waiting, and striking when it mattered most. The Alaskan tundra near Fairbanks was a place where silence ruled. Snow stretched endlessly, broken only by jagged pines and the howl of the wind. Shade had been deployed to Station Frostline, a covert site designed to test operators in sub-zero extremes. Here, cold wasn't just discomfort. It was a weapon. The mission was Overwatch for a Ranger unit moving through frozen valleys. Shade climbed alone, her boots crunching against ice, her breath steady despite the biting air. She found her perch on a ridge, camouflaged beneath snow-covered netting. Hours passed. She didn't move. She didn't shiver. She simply watched. The Rangers advanced cautiously, their movement slowed by the cold. Then gunfire erupted from hidden positions. Hostiles emerged from snow shelters, pinning the unit down. Shade adjusted her scope, her fingers steady despite the frost. One shot, one kill. Another. Then another. Her rhythm was unbroken, her breathing controlled, her precision absolute. But the true test came when a foreign sniper revealed himself, professional, disciplined, positioned nearly 1,600 yards away. His scope glinted faintly, aimed directly at the Ranger commander. Shade calculated distance, wind, and the drag of cold air. No spotter. No margin for error. She inhaled once, exhaled, and fired. The hostile collapsed, his rifle sinking into the snow. The Rangers regrouped, completing their mission. When they returned to base, the commander confronted Shade. "You weren't cleared to engage," he said. Shade's voice was calm. "I wasn't here to follow rules. I was here to make sure you lived." That night, Torres sat beside her near the fire pit, his hands trembling from the cold. "You don't just survive," he said quietly. "You thrive where others break." Shade didn't look up. "I don't thrive," she replied softly. "I endure." The tundra had tested her, and she had answered. Not with warmth, not with comfort, but with precision that turned ice into survival. Shade wasn't just a ghost anymore. She was the frozen watch, silent, patient, and deadly when the moment demanded. New York's harbor was restless, waves slapping against steel hulls under a gray dawn. Shade had been summoned to Harbor Sentinel, a covert facility hidden among abandoned docks. This wasn't training anymore. It was deployment. A real mission, cloaked in secrecy. The Rangers advanced through the docks. Gunfire erupted. Hostiles poured from warehouses, pinning the unit down. Shade adjusted her scope, tracked the chaos, and fired. One shot, one kill. Another. Then another. Her rhythm was unbroken, her breathing calm, her precision absolute. Then she saw it, a glint of glass, faint but deadly. Another sniper, elevated, disciplined, aimed directly at the Ranger commander. Distance, 1,520 yards. Crosswind at 10 knots. No spotter. No margin for error. Shade inhaled once, exhaled, and fired. The hostile collapsed, his rifle clattering against steel. The Rangers secured the courier, completing the mission. When they returned to base, the commander confronted Shade. "You weren't cleared to engage," he said. Shade's voice was calm. "I wasn't here to follow rules. I was here to make sure you lived." That night, Torres found her on the pier, staring at the water. "You don't just survive," he said quietly. "You change the battlefield." Shade didn't look up. "I don't change it," she replied softly. "I end it." The harbor had tested her, and she had answered. Not with medals, not with recognition, but with precision that turned death into survival. Shade wasn't just a ghost anymore. She was the final silence, the unseen hand that ended battles before they began. And in the shadows of the city, her legend was complete.